everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of TechTalk, our new Innserve podcast. My name's Grace, and I'll be your guide through this exciting new venture. We wanted to create a space where we can delve deeper into important updates for our field colleagues, share knowledge, and maybe even have a few laughs along the way. In this first episode, you can expect to hear about FLS, our new automated planning tool. We'll also find out about the importance of raising hazard alerts, and we'll discover how a group of Innserve colleagues are supporting one another to stay active and look after their physical well-being. Plus, we've got some quick-fire questions for our guests to keep them on their toes. So wherever you're listening, I hope you enjoy Tech Talk. Let's get into it. Let's start with a topic that directly affects you. Yes, you. You who is listening to this podcast right now. Let's talk about safety. Working as a technician can come with its fair share of risks, and it's crucial to stay safe and look out for each other. You might have seen a lot of comms last year about hazard reporting. To help us understand why hazard reporting is so vital, I'm joined today by Vicky Biggs, our Health, Safety and Environmental Manager. If you've already met Vicky, you'll know she is super passionate about keeping you safe and has a wealth of knowledge to share with us today. Vicky, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hi Grace, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Good. So let's start with the basics. What's the difference between a hazard, a near miss and an accident?
They sort of run in a chain, really. So one leads on to the other. So a hazard is what we class as an unsafe condition. So it hasn't actually really done anything to result in an accident, but it's something that's just not right. It's just not normal in the working environment. So a classic example for that would be if you were working in a cellar, for example, if you're a technician and you'd notice there was a broken step, that would be an unsafe condition. A near miss is where you've now moved on to that next stage. So in actual fact, you're walking up the stairs and the step breaks from underneath you, but you manage to catch yourself. That'll be a near miss. So that's where in actual fact we've had a negative situation, but by sheer luck, you didn't end up being injured. And then an accident in actual fact is where we've had that negative effect. The step's broken, you've fallen, you've had that accident and you've ended up having a personal injury. So that's what the difference is. And the way we describe it is really the hazard is the precursor to an accident. It's that very first stage that then sort of builds up. So the more hazard reports we get, the better, because in actual fact, we've got that opportunity to capture that unsafe situation before it progresses into anything further.
Brilliant. So the broken step is the hazard. The potentially tripping on the broken step is the near miss. But tripping on the step is the accident. Is that right?
Yes. Accident is where you've had your personal injury.
I think I know the difference. But say, for example, a technician almost slips on a wet floor, but they catch themselves. Is that a hazard or is that a near miss?
That would be a near miss. So if you saw a floor that had a spill of water on it, that would be your unsafe condition. That would be your hazard. So you've walked into a room, you've seen it there. And really then what you should do is we should get that cleaned up. If you've slipped on that water, either because you haven't seen it or you've just walked through it thinking it'll be fine, but then you've nearly slipped, but you caught yourself, then that would be the near miss. If you had slipped on that water, fallen and landed on the floor and hurt yourself, that would then be the accident.
That's really clear. Thanks, Vicky. And in your experience, why is it so important for a technician to report a hazard, even if an accident hasn't occurred yet?
Because the hazard is that unsafe condition. And if it's an unsafe condition for you, it'll be unsafe condition for others. So it's an opportunity for you to correct that, not just for yourself, but for others. Bearing in mind when we're working in pubs, we're working in other people's working environments. So being those eyes and the ears also helps that outlet as well. If you report that hazard that we can rectify, then in actual fact, it'll make it safer for the people that actually work in that environment.
Brilliant. So would a hazard be reported to the outlet and the staff that work in that outlet then?
It should be notified to them so that they can actually correct it straight away. But the way we like it to be reported is through the hazard reporting system. So we've got it documented. And from that point, we can then actually trace it through and we can follow the action right the way through to completion.
What would you say to the listener of today's podcast if they were hesitant to report a hazard because they think it's not a big deal?
It's all part of being the one big team and the proud to care in the fact that we're looking out for not just our other work colleagues, but anyone else that's in that environment. And it's also about influencing a safer working environment. It's almost like being the change. If we always ignore things because we didn't really think it would matter, we would actually never ever make that positive change within the workplace. It can make such a difference. It's about being able to influence. If you want to know that you're coming to work and you know that that environment is safe, that's where you can make that difference. If you're coming in thinking, well, it's always a mess in here, nothing ever changes, then that's because we haven't been that change. And by reporting these hazards and making that place safer, we are making that change better for everybody. We're also able to collect that data as well, which means that if we're starting to see very clear trends, we can do very positive things from that, working with our customers, working with the outlets, and actually supporting them to make it a better place.
I hear you loud and clear. So, Vicky, I've spotted a hazard. I've reported it. What happens next? Who gets notified, and what are the actions that will be taken to address the hazard?
So you've reported your hazard, so thank you very much for doing that, because it really does help us.
You're welcome.
It gets reported on the instant notification system, and that will go off to your line manager. So, of course, our system is not just specific to technicians. It'll be anyone that's out up in Sunderland, in Follansbee, and also in Tadcaster. So it goes off to the line manager. Typically for outlets, depending on what the issue is, we'll normally issue a hazard outlet letter, and that will then detail what the issue has been raised, and then we'll also give them a deadline for when that needs to be completed. That then goes through and it's notified to hazard alerts, who will then track that on a spreadsheet. They'll then put when that due date is. They'll then follow that up to then make sure that we've got the evidence and that's being closed out. We have recently installed a feedback button onto the instant report system. So in actual fact, we can feed back to the original reporter that that's been done. We have had some serious cases where in actual fact we've had to suspend the service, but we'll also work with the outlet. We don't leave them to struggle. So we've had some with unsecure gas bottles. We've had it with poor housekeeping arrangements. And the area manager will actually work with that outlet to get them up to a standard as to where they need to be. So we're really keen to get the service reinstated, but we'd rather ensure that it's reinstated correctly with the right control measures in place. So we have had incidences where we will temporarily suspend that service if we believe that that is what's needed to keep our technicians safe and to also give the outlet the time to get that improved.
That's really positive to hear. The feedback button sounds like a great idea, because the listener of today's podcast might have reported a hazard in the past and heard nothing back. And although I'm sure you can't respond to every single hazard that's been raised, it can sometimes feel like shouting into the void. Do you have any examples of how a specific hazard has led to positive change in the past?
Well, with the recent one, like we just mentioned about the unsecure gas cylinders, we ended up having a serious near miss where the cylinder had fallen over, and the condition of the cellar wasn't very good, and we've worked with the outlet to resolve that. But then as part of that, we've actually then been working with Heineken for them to, in actual fact, send that out to their outlets, and in order to then have a better safe working environment, because unsecure cylinders is also a risk for the outlet. And if we end up with an outlet that's burnt down to the ground, we've lost that customer and they've lost that business. They might not reopen. So we've worked very collaboratively with Heineken to raise what that issue is, courtesy of a near-miss report coming in. We've also had other smaller ones where we'd had an accident, for example. So this isn't that proactive reporting. We've had that negative impact. We've waited until an accident's happened. But this could have been picked up as an unsafe condition where we require technicians to take a cooler sample. And they have a little small pipette, which in actual fact is not long enough to go down the side of the cooler. So we all come up with very inventive ways of doing it. We dip down screwdrivers and we collect that sample that way. Where in actual fact, we then got them a longer pipette where they don't need to do it and it goes right down the side. So we don't have to put our fingers near those sharp edges and stuff like that. If that had been reported as a hazard report or a near miss, then we would have got that before someone unfortunately had to be injured.
Of course.
So that is sort of why the near-miss reporting, getting at that very early stage, makes all the difference.
Fantastic. Thank you. That is such a great example of colleagues keeping each other safe and preventing accidents from happening. So thank you. If the person listening today could only take away one key message about safety, what would you want that message to be?
One message would be is the person responsible for safety is looking back at you in the mirror, because that is where it starts. And technicians are the eyes and ears for our business, and it's important that we keep you safe. People always tend to think about the fatality and the bad event, which is really bad, and it's a tragedy when it does happen. But in actual fact, when you look at all the smaller events that can still have that impact, that's well within our control to change. And we need that with persons just making that hazard report and being that difference. If you see an unsafe situation, it's also not a case of ignoring it. It's a case of how can you make that safe? If it's within your capability and competence to do it, make it safe, but still report it. So it's one of those, just don't walk by.
Don't walk by, be the change.
Be the change.
Be the change. I love that. Okay, so now on to the hard-hitting questions, Vicky. We ask all of our guests on the podcast some quick-fire questions so we can get to know you a little bit better. So, what's the best pint you've ever had? Where did you have it? Paint us a picture.
Well, I actually gave up drinking 4 years ago inadvertently in lockdown. I went complete reverse to everyone else. However, my favourite tipple was always Copper Dragon Golden Pippin. And when I used to live in Homefirth, there was a fantastic bar, and it always used to be in there right by the Argo, which was the heated for the pub, and that was my best pint
That sounds like a very cosy pint.
Very.
We also have our go-to snacks when enjoying a drink. Now, if you don't drink anymore, that's fine. But I have heard you talk about some great snacks in the office. So can you tell us what your favourite go-to snack is, either when you're having a pint or not?
Oh, blimey. There's so many. I mean, food features a lot of my life. It really does. But yes, I would probably say that the snack would be crisps for me. Plain crisps. A really good crunch is what I need to have on my...
Good crunch. Any flavour in particular or all crisps on the table?
No, it'd have to be plain. And during lockdown again, I mastered the art of making crisps in the microwave.
Wow.
Which was lethal because then all I needed was a potato and a thin slicer.
You will have to teach me that recipe. I am amazed. Vicky, it's been a pleasure having you on TechTalk today. Thank you so much for keeping us all safe at work, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Now let's dive into a topic that's been creating a buzz across the company, FLS, our brand new automated planning tool. To walk us through all things FLS, I'm thrilled to welcome Kate Bradley, our Regional Operations Manager, to the show. Kate has been involved in the rollout of FLS and knows the system like the back of her hand. Kate, welcome and great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me, Grace.
So talk to me as if I was an alien that's just landed on planet Innserve. What is FLS and what is it designed to do?
So FLS is an automated planning tool, and it is designed to take all types of activities. For us, that's installation, maintenance, COPS, census, smart dispense service visits. It then looks at all of the resource that's available, so all of our different types of technicians, the service level that needs to be achieved, the access times that are available on the call, and plans the most efficient route in order to minimise travel, ensure that we hit as many SLAs as possible whilst maintaining the technicians' working hours.
That makes sense. From what I understand, we have been trying to get an automated planning system like FLS off the ground for years. What's changed now, and why is it the right time for Innserve to have this technology?
So we've been looking at planning tools for a considerable amount of time. I would say what has changed is the technology. There's been massive improvements associated with planning technology since we first started having a look at this. And it's the right time for us as Innserve as we continue with our massive culture change throughout the business, trying to drive efficiencies and improvements going forward in line with our simplicity value as well. The ultimate aim of this is to simplify the planning process.
It's a very complicated process at the moment, and it's very manual from what I understand.
Incredibly manual. And the desire is that we sort of can take the easy stuff out of the hands of the planning teams, and FLS can organise that, and then that leaves the planners, more time and opportunity to take the stuff that requires a little bit more thinking about.
It sounds great. And if we're being realistic, no system is perfect from day one. So what kind of teething problems might the tech listening expect from day one?
So FLS works to a set of rules. And so, whilst we know that it is going to, plan jobs, we've tested it and we know that the simple action of just allocating a call to a technician, it functions very, very well. It's the small settings that we will need to keep an eye on, and we will need help and support from the technicians, from the area managers, in terms of understanding any sort of rogue decisions that they feel like it might be making, so that we can adjust and tweak with those settings. A good example of that could be travel time. So it does take into account an average travel time, but if we were to see over the sort of first week that there's a team of technicians who are continuously 15 minutes late to all of their sort of planned visit times, that would suggest that we need to do something with the travel time associated with the technicians in that area. It gives us the ability to be able to sort of flex the settings based on geography. So we can have different settings in London, we can have different settings in North Wales because of all of the different conditions that you find with the different geographies. So I think the teething issues that we're sort of expecting are small things that we can, look at, understand why, and then fix settings to ensure that FLS doesn't make those same decisions again.
Of course. One big change with FLS is that techs are going to have to follow their job list in order, which is quite a stark difference from what we do at the moment. So why is this change necessary, and how will it benefit both technicians and the business as a whole?
So the change is necessary because FLS needs to sort of know where the technician is to understand, well, what is the travel time and how long is the technician anticipated to be on that call, so that it can plan the visits for the rest of the day. So the need for them to follow the plan that FLS has put into place is for that reason. If they were to attend a call that was planned for the end of the day before their call that's planned for them at the beginning of the day, they will physically be in a different location to where FLS thinks they are, and therefore the plan that FLS generates wouldn't match. Totally understand this is a huge change for technicians. I had a very similar discussion with some technicians in one of the training sessions the other day, and they asked a similar question. You make the great point of our technicians knowing their areas. We don't want to lose that. We respect that, and we don't want to lose that. So because of that reason, we're not removing the visibility of the unplanned calls off the top board. But what we do want to do is, rather than the planners, getting phone calls off the technicians asking, can you swap this job for that job? Can you give me this job? I can pick that one up on the way home. We need to trust in FLS. We've purchased a planning tool, and we need to, try and use it to its best advantage. So the only way that we can do that is through trusting its plan and understanding what it's doing. The technicians can use the top board to understand if it's doing something a bit rogue, a bit weird, and we'd welcome that feedback, but we don't really want them to be phoning in and asking for specific jobs. Planning is different. It's different, the way I would plan something would be different to the way you plan something, Grace. It would be different to the way that a technician would plan something. Doesn't mean I'm right, you're right, the technician's right. Doesn't mean that FLS is right. There's multiple ways of doing it. And so because of that, I think we just need the feedback so that we can understand why FLS made that decision. We're happy with that decision, or we're not happy with that decision. Let's have a look at why it's did it and see if we can change things.
Absolutely. And I guess we've got a lot of technicians in the business who have excellent knowledge of the roads in their areas, but we also do have new technicians joining us who might not have that knowledge. So what I'm understanding is FLS will level the playing field and make sure that all of our technicians across the UK are as effective as possible.
A good example of that as well, Grace, is they might have been with us for 10 years, but they might have agreed to help us out and work in a totally different area to what they used to. They can get given calls somewhere and, the route is planned out for them instead of having to, try and understand where can I and where do I need to go next.
let's say I'm a technician using the FLS system for the first time and something goes wrong. What feedback mechanisms are in place for techs to share their experiences with FLS and contribute to its ongoing improvement?
So the first thing I would say, if it is something that is immediately stopping you from doing your day-to-day work, so you can't get on with something, then you should follow the normal processes and speak to the help desk team. If it's something where you just feel like it's done something a little bit rogue, or you want to question or understand the decision that it's making, we want to look at patterns. So, is there a pattern to what it seems to be doing? And if there is a pattern, raise that with your line manager. We can then pick that up as part of the FLS project team. Alternatively, there's a People First page, which is a great place for people to be able to log queries and questions. The benefit of doing it through there is sharing knowledge. So if you were to post a question or a query on there, a response would be able to be posted and everybody can see that, rather than it just being sort of kept insular between yourself and help desk or yourself and your line managers.
Excellent. If the person listening could only take away one key message about FLS, what would you want that key message to be?
The key message is work with us. Please be patient. If there is something, then if there's a pattern, flag it to us and we will, amend and adjust those settings. Don't just give up on it on day one. We know it works. We just want the technicians to work with us to understand if there's something that it's doing that seems a bit weird, so that we can have a look and finely tune those settings.
So trust the system even when it might not look like it's working. It's definitely going to work. We just have to give it time.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kate, every guest that comes onto this podcast has to answer some quick fire questions so the tech listening can get to know you a little bit better. So what is the best pint you've ever had and where did you have it? Paint us a picture.
So might sound strange for somebody who works sort of for a brewery company, but I don't like beer. So rather than best pint, I will go for best drink, and I like an amaretto sour. So great place for one of those is the Botanist in Leeds. You can sit out on the balcony on a nice sunny day, look out over the city and enjoy your cocktail.
That sounds ideal. And we all have our go-to snacks when we're enjoying a cocktail or a pint. What is your favourite go-to snack? And are there any hidden gems you can recommend to our listener today?
So I'm quite a traditionalist at heart, so I'm going to go with the crisp to have alongside my drink. So I'd pick a nice ready salted crisp.
You might be surprised to hear this, Kate, but crisps have been a popular choice when answering this question with other podcast guests, so you are not alone. Kate, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like I've got a much deeper understanding of FLS, how it works, and what to expect in the coming months. Good luck with the launch, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thanks for inviting me.
Now, we all know staying active and healthy is important, but did you know there's a way to connect with your fellow Innserve colleagues, get motivated, and maybe even spark a little bit of friendly competition, all whilst tracking your fitness goals? I'm talking about the Innserve Strava group, and to tell us all about it, we have a special guest today, Adrian Barraclough, Senior Area Manager for the East. Adrian is the driving force behind this fantastic initiative, and he's here to share all of the details. Adrian, welcome to Tech Talk, or shall I call you Adi?
Adi's fine. Nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on. Let's start with a really silly question. What is Strava and who can use it?
Strava is open to anyone. You can use it through laptops, mobile phones, Android, Apple phones. It's just basically an activity group that you can record any activity. It doesn't have to be running. It could be walking. It could be golf. It could be stand-up paddleboarding. Any form of activity, you can record it on Strava.
Perfect. And what inspired you to start the group for Innserve colleagues? Was there a specific moment, an achievement, or an event to make you feel like it was a good idea to start it?
I've been using running apps for a long time. I've been using various ones, and then I went on to Strava about 5 years ago. With the lockdown, what I found was it was great help for me, because I did a lot of running anyway, but it was great help for me to to reach out to other people. So basically it was born out of that, because I realized that mental health is very, very important. You can link it through to your physical activity. And it was basically, I approached Kate Bradley and said, would it be a good idea to set up this Innserve Strava group that will have permission to do it? She approached Kieran and Peter O'Brien. They thought it was a great idea because both of those are heavily active as well. And it was born up basically from lockdown, really.
So what kind of activities do our members track? What's the overall vibe of the group?
It's very, very varied. We have everything. Obviously, you've got the running, you've got the cycling, and you've got the gym goers, you've got the hiking. There's all sorts on there, stand-up paddleboarding. We've got Shelley, who does skating, which is absolutely fantastic.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that, seeing the videos that she posts. We've got all sorts. It's all on there. Every activity is recordable. So there's no one activity which stands out amongst the rest. And we're not all protein drinking, avocado on toast type guys. We actually do post our walks to the pub, showing our famous meals that we've been having as well. So the actual vibe is great on there. It's not just all about how fast, how high, how strong you are. It's just about just being active.
How many members does the group have at the moment?
It started out with just about 17 members. And then last year in 2024, I don't know why, but it suddenly exploded up to about 40 to 50. So yeah, last year was probably the biggest year for it. It just really just grew last year.
So what about that person who's listening to this podcast who might be hesitant to join because they're not a serious athlete? I'm doing quotation marks when I say serious because, let's be honest, none of us are serious athletes.
Exactly. It's all about how I set the actual group up with the element of the competition that we actually do with it. There is a league table there, but it's not about how fast or how strong you are. I set it up about purely how much time you allow to do your physical activity. If you're just a gentle walker over the mountains, you can actually excel on that group. So just don't be discouraged from it. You've got to start out somewhere. There's always going to be someone faster than you, always someone stronger than you. It doesn't matter who you are. So yeah, please don't be discouraged. I actually really do think that being physical is a great way to help your mental health and physical health at the same time. So yeah, it's a fantastic group.
Totally agree. And for you personally, what have been some of the highlights of the Strava group over the past year? Any impressive achievements or activities where you just thought, wow?
Every week, there's always something on there that I do actually think, wow, from what people actually do. And it has actually inspired me to keep running as well when I feel like I can't be bothered doing this. It just keeps me going. I've seen people on there come from nothing to do the York half marathon. Yourself doing the Great North Run, I thought was fantastic. And we've had Shelley, as I said before, posting her videos of her skating, doing what do they call it, air jumps or something on her skating. Absolutely fantastic. And the miles and the time that people put into this is there's no one standout really. I can't really pick one out because each week they're all fantastic.
Okay, Adi. As one of our senior area managers, I think it's only fair to do some quick fire questions so the tech listening can get to know you a little bit better. What's the best pint you've ever had and where did you have it? Paint us a picture.
Okay. I was 18. I was in week 6 of basic training in the Royal Navy, and we were doing an expedition across Dartmoor. And the end goal was to get to a pub called the Plume and Feathers on Dartmoor itself. We managed to get there, and it was probably the best pint I've ever had. And I had sausage, egg and chips as well. And it was just like my mum made it. From being camping out overnight in the middle of November, walking across 10 miles over Dartmoor in the morning in the freezing cold. Yeah, it was just the best pint. I'll never forget it. Never forget it.
I can imagine. And we all have our go-to snacks when enjoying a drink. What's your favourite and why? Any hidden gems you can recommend?
It's definitely crisps. I can just live on crisps. I am a crisp monster.
A crisp monster. Any flavour in particular, or is it all crisps?
Any flavour crisps, really. I have to get rationed at home. The wife gets really annoyed with how much crisps I do have. So yeah, I am a bit of a crisp monster. There is no one thing. I just love all types of crisps, really.
Running the amount of miles that you do, I'm sure that's not a problem. Adi, thank you for everything you've done for your colleagues. Your Sunday Strava roundups are always the highlight of my week, and I look forward to seeing you run some more marathons for fun in 2025, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of our very first episode. A huge thank you for tuning in and spending some time learning about how we're working together to keep Britain pouring. Of course, a massive thank you to Vicky, Kate and Adrian for joining me today and sharing their insights. It was great to have you guys on the show. Please let us know what you thought of this episode and share your feedback with me or our producer, Hal Rhodes. We'll always be looking for ways to improve and make Tech Talk even better. We're also looking for technicians to be guests on our podcast and share your Innserve career journeys or just some funny stories with your fellow techs. If you're interested in getting involved, please reach out. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Tech Talk.